Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers are warned that the following program may contain images and voices of deceased persons.
It's picture perfect and rich in buttered sandstone. Australia's regional centres and tidy towns are much more than postcard digits.
It's just so nice, it's so clean, it's so quiet. Out here, you can talk to people, you know, and it's lovely.
When you cross the divide, the fertile paddocks stretch out to the Central Plains. And beyond the coloured deserts lies the big sky country of Western Australia. It'll take your breath away.
We have a wonderful community here, just local, great communities have been built up over a lot of years.
Hello, I'm Ray Martin. As a journalist, I thought that I knew enough about the ice problem in the bush, how it's being spread by the bikies and other organised gangs. But you've got to come out here, you've got to talk to the locals to realise how bad it really is, how these tightly-knit communities are being ripped apart.
The small country town where, you know, it was safe to leave your doors unlocked at night, it doesn't happen anymore because the scourge of drugs, because mainly ice.
The drug ice, crystal methamphetamine, is a big city poison that's been flooding in for a few years now. It's a reckless beast that for some people becomes addictive the first time they try it.
Can it be addictive with one hit?
It can.
But the invincible high is soon replaced by an impossible low that can take out the best, even an Olympic champion.
I can't get this time back because I've had enough.
The clutch of addiction is irresistible. It doesn't discriminate.
I've sold to lawyers, I've sold to teachers, I've sold to nurses, you know.
Young lives sucked into drug dealing to support a daily habit costing thousands.
$5 grand. Yeah, $5 grand every day.
And the drug networks don't mess around.
They're going to just drill my kneecaps out or...
Now, what makes this drug different is the violence it sparks. It's something that even police find hard to believe.
He came back to the police station that night and actually broke one of our constable's legs.
But the cops know that most of the suffering goes on behind closed doors.
He'd hit me, he'd choke me, he would put me through walls, yeah.
But is anybody in Canberra listening? Or is the bush being forgotten once again?
The federal government spent $300 million. We haven't seen a cent of it.
The alternative is to do nothing, but that is not an alternative.
And I say this to all parents that are suffering this. You don't have to fall into that hole.
Fighting to make sure that not one more life is lost to this ugly, violent drug.
Cherish your children. Cherish the time you got with them.
Born in the bush, I've spent a lifetime wandering this fantastic land of ours. Country towns with their special Aussie character make me feel at home, wandering with my camera. We'll all be ruined, said Hanrahan in the iconic Aussie poem, by drought or by floods or bushfires, by natural disasters. But this crisis is very different. It's man-made. And everybody knows somebody who's been hurt.
What is ice?
Ice is methamphetamine. It comes in multiple forms. These days it comes in forms that can be smoked or injected, and so it's much more potent than the old amphetamines. And for the layperson, it's just like giving you a big adrenaline rush.
How big?
Oh, this drug gives the most enormous rush of the drugs we've seen.
Is this the worst that you've seen?
This is the scariest drug in terms of the acute toxicity, in terms of the risk for us physically in the emergency department. And,
Jason Cruikshank is the medical director at Ballarat Hospital.
And how many beds?
25 beds.
25.
He moved to country Victoria to raise his children, hoping for a quieter life. Now, of all the emergencies that Jason and his team have seen, nothing is quite as violent as an ice-induced psychosis.
So that takes a lot of our resources.
How many people?
3 nurses minimum.
Yeah, senior doctor.
2 doctors minimum, maybe 3 if we could. At least 2 or 3 security and the backup team and the police that bring them in.
And the police?
Yeah.
Firstly, you can't be too close to them. To be honest with you, they're extraordinarily strong, and you see things that you wouldn't believe, that you'll see an entire trolley turned on its side by one person, which you can't quite imagine because they're solid.
In emergency wards across the country, it's all too common. At last count, there are almost 300,000 ICE users nationwide. Recent research has discovered that ICE use in regional Australia has soared a staggering 150% since 2007. 150%. That's compared with only a 16% rise in the cities.
Can it be addictive with one hit?
It can.
It can?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the consequences are transparent. Deep depression, paranoia, self-harm and harm to others.
Nick!
Excuse the phrase, but a wild animal?
They're unrecognisable. Unrecognisable to their loved ones. And they're actually, when they come to, they're unrecognisable to themselves.
I told him when he first started, I suppose, I said to him, you know, I want my brother back, and he said, I haven't gone anywhere. And I said, you've changed so much, and he just couldn't see it.
Nick Monctor's sister Shakira cherishes the photos and the memories of the big brother whom she loved.
This is you?
Yeah, that's the family. And that's me and him, his car.
Like so many parents raising their kids in Echuca, the Monctors were oblivious to the ice flooding into their charming town, which is nestled on the banks of the Murray. Do you know when he started using ice?
He'd started a new job. He was doing pretty good in the job, and I think with the job come different friends that opened his life up to, you know, the sinister side of it, I suppose.
It is a shocking scene, one of the worst I've seen in my time as the Assistant Commissioner for Road Policing.
On the Australia Day long weekend in 2015, Nick and his 3 mates, Corey Bray, Chris Redden and Josh Taylor, headed off to Melbourne in Nick's beloved silver Commodore. None of the boys would return alive.
It's just beautiful. He was a good kid. Wish he was still here. You never want this to happen to everybody. I don't want...
It's just...
You're right, love. Just... We understand. I mean, the people do understand.
The 4 young men died here tragically. It was about 6 o'clock on a January morning last year. What we do know is the car was coming in this direction from Melbourne, came over the road, down the embankment and finished up here. It was an horrific accident. Police say that speed was not involved. This was the wake-up call that the community feared was inevitable. All 4 men had ice in their system. The drug was also found in the car.
Nick should have been hospitalised before the accident anyway.
Why?
Because the levels were so high.
The events leading up to the accident are being examined by the Victorian coroner. But nothing will change the fact that 4 families from a beautiful country town lost their sons.
Oh, I always think about him. You wish he was here to enjoy his life a bit more.
Yep. And sitting in the back seat next to Nick was Chris Redden. The pair had been mates since primary school.
Was he ever normal? Was he ever sweet?
Yeah, he was amazing. You know, that's what a lot of my memories are good memories, but then...
Paige Semino was Chris's school sweetheart.
You know, he was...
Together, they were raising their 2 boys, Jamar and Logan, when he was killed. For Paige, the horror of the crash site reminded her of the twisted mess her life had become due to Chris's drug use.
Yeah, he looks pretty skinny there. And what are the marks again?
That's from ice.
The marks here are from ice.
Yeah, that's either the pimples or he's picking.
All Paige could do was watch as the ice ate away the goodness in the young bloke she loved.
I never, ever would have thought he would ever hurt me.
So you never thought he'd hurt you, but in fact he hurt you all the time?
Every day.
Every day?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Every day.
This is what's left of the family home. Holes in the walls, broken furniture, smashed fences, and a ruined car. They're all scars of the uncontrollable rage that goes hand in hand with ice.
So how did it change Christopher?
He used to sling me over the couch and chairs. Yeah, he would put me through walls, yeah. And all in front of my kids. They used to scream. And he didn't punch my face or anything. He used to kick or my throat. He used to choke me.
Just weeks before Chris died, Paige took the boys and they fled for their own safety.
He had petrol, a 2-litre bottle, a Coke bottle of petrol, and he was screaming out that he's gonna burn me and everything. I've never been so scared in my life. I ran.
Paige, it's too sad. I mean, how did you put up with it?
I don't know, I loved him. But that moment with the petrol, that was my fear. I never went back to him after that.
It would be the last time she'd see Chris alive. Tragically, Chris lost his life, but still only 22, Paige is lost too. She's a battered victim of this ugly drug.
And now he passed away, I regret that I let him walk out my door. Because he wouldn't be where he is. But then I know that Ice is why he's gone.
But you tried and you tried again.
I tried and tried to help him, he didn't listen. You make Mum laugh when you want supper.
Cherish your children. Cherish the time you got with them.
A truck driver, Wally Mogta passes the makeshift shrine almost every day.
What do you say to him, Wally? When you go by in the truck, what do you say to him?
Hey, mate.
Hey, mate.
Yeah. I just think they're the hills. The boys of the hills now down there, you know.
Coming up, the country girl who conquered the world.
I had that much adrenaline. I don't think anything could have topped that.
But then tumbled back to earth and lost everything.
From Olympian to accused criminal.
In the 1800s, Bendigo was famous for its gold rush. But in more recent times, it's also become famous for a different kind of gold, Olympic gold. As a kid, Chantel Newby trained here at this pool before going on to Athens, where she won gold in diving. Her fall from grace, like the high board, has been spectacular, but sad. Chantel is only one of thousands of ice users in this part of country Victoria, many of whom have gone on to become ice addicts.
She is currently in the gold medal position.
All right, Athens Olympics 2004, you're up on the 10-metre platform. Describe your last dive to win gold. Take us back.
I was overwhelmed with every emotion that I could in the space of 10 minutes. I was almost vomiting in between dives. Then all of a sudden I'm standing on the 10-metre and it's all about to happen.
Come on, Australia. Get on the edge of your chair, ride this one with her.
And then the next thing you know, I'm in the water and it's happened.
Yes! That should be it!
Yes, sensational, Chantel. What a performance.
That might be a golden moment, a little bit of history.
I had that much adrenaline. I don't think anything could have topped that.
So back in Bendigo as a little girl and a young girl, were you the best?
No, I was never really the best.
Really?
No, not really.
So how did you win?
I think a lot of hard work and determination and good coaching and good support.
So, Chantel, where does that determination come from? As a little girl, did you have it?
Yeah, always.
Always?
Always. If I wanted something, I just had to get it, and I did everything I could to get it.
In 80 years, no Australian diver had done what Chantel did. She was the toast of the Aussie team, but she fell from glory to jail in just a couple of years.
From Olympian to accused criminal, Chantel Newbury's fall from grace splashed into Brisbane Supreme Court.
Facing her mother's death from cancer and a nervous breakdown, Chantel turned to ice and now honesty.
I hid it for a while, a long time. It was something I did by myself, just to get ahead, just to keep up with everything. And then, you don't keep up. You end up by getting further behind.
Why did you try ice?
I was sad a lot.
That phrase...
It made it better. You didn't cry.
Okay.
The tears stopped.
Someone said to me that, a friend of yours said to me that it takes the sadness away, that ice takes the sadness away.
Yeah.
Is that what it does?
Yeah.
It does?
Yeah, you don't cry. You start to believe in yourself, you know, I mean, but in reality, you just turn circles a little bit.
Those turning circles became a downward spiral, an addiction that landed Chantel in prison twice.
I cried a lot in prison, but a lot at night. During the day I was fine, but at night I didn't sleep.
Can I ask you, I have to ask, are you still using?
I've slipped a couple of times, but to be honest, I know where I'm going at the moment, and I know that I've got a lot to look forward to with my kids and everything.
Why are you so determined? Why are you so confident?
Oh, because my kids are great. They're amazing, and I miss them. I can't get this time back, so it has to happen. It has to happen. And it has to happen quickly, because I've had enough.
Have you?
Yep.
Chantel, the mum, is slowly but surely getting her life back together. Chantel, the Olympic champion, is standing by to help her do it.
So you refuse to be a victim?
No, I don't want to be a victim, no.
Okay.
No.
In a sense, has it destroyed your life? Has ice destroyed your life?
It's just the kids. That's the hardest part. That's the bit that cuts me.
Chantel, can I remind you?
Mm-hmm.
You're the Olympic champion.
Oh.
You had the discipline, you have the discipline, you have the ability. You do things that none of the rest of us can do.
Yeah, I don't feel like that anymore. Right now, when I think of the Olympics and think of all of that time, I think, oh, that's a fraud. This is a fraud.
Fraud?
Yeah, that's not me at the moment, so.
You know they've got a big photo of you and almost a shrine of you at the Bendigo pool. How does that make you feel?
That's where it all started. That's where I took my first dive in a club, and it's been really great that they've stood behind me.
Coming up, stopping the supply.
Well, you know, they're scum, Ray.
And a mother's desperate attempt to save her son.
I don't want to take a phone call to say that he's in jail or whether, you know, I've got to identify him.
For cops on the road in regional Australia, the ice problem is almost as big as the area they protect.
I look after an area from the Queensland border and down the South Australian border to Victoria.
New South Wales Assistant Commissioner Jeff McKechnie is the commander in charge of the Western region. It's a patch the size of some European countries. Jeff's a local bush boy, so it's his own backyard that he wants to clean up.
It's a pretty big area, but it's a great part of the state and lots of different things to see and lots of great towns in that area.
On the front line, his officers are reeling from the effects of ice-related crime.
We've had recently one of our female probationary constables had a leg broken by a drug-affected prisoner in the charge room.
Because ice can be manufactured in makeshift labs, as soon as one operator is shut down, another one pops up down the road.
Who are the dealers? Are they local dealers? Is it Asian drugs? Is it bikies? Who is it?
Well, you know, they're scum, Ray. Many of them are financed and organised by the outlaw motorcycle gangs. It's hard to say how much of our drugs comes in from overseas, but regional New South Wales is attractive in some ways because you can go about your business often undetected on large properties or isolated properties.
What are the crimes associated? Violence?
You know, we've seen spikes in property crime in a number of our towns across regional New South Wales for this very reason. You know, in one instance, I know that Mum was sleeping with a handbag under her pillow. so that her son didn't take her money that she had in her bag. He'd taken most everything else.
Is there a certain irony about the fact that people leave the city because of the madness of the rat race? They come to these beautiful places like Dubbo and others, and they suddenly find they've got this problem.
I mean, people always talk about the bush and talk about Dubbo being the bush. Well, Dubbo's not the bush anymore. Armidale, Tamworth, Dubbo, Orange, Bathurst are regional cities.
Yep. Or Geelong or Cairns or...
Wagga. Yeah. They're having city-type issues now.
But he admits the latest police road blitz
This is an MDT, a mobile drug test.
has uncovered some disturbing facts about drugs and drivers.
We're seeing, between 1 in 4 and 1 in 8 positive tests for drugs on the road. I mean...
1 in 8?
Up to 1 in 4.
Wow.
I mean, I think it's 1 in 600 for a random breath test in terms of alcohol.
Yep.
So
as you drive along the road, every fourth car potentially has someone under the influence of drugs.
Exactly right. I'd be driving from work to home, sitting on about 180, 200 kilometres an hour, going through stop signs because I'm coming down and thinking if something hits me, it hits me. So it's a horrible drug, mate.
Behind the walls of Western Australia's Wandoo prison, you'll find the frightening reality of ice addiction. Life behind bars is very different from the childhood that Shane Taylor remembers.
I grew up in Bunbury in southwest WA. When I was a kid, I was never going to be a druggie. I was never, ever going to use a needle. And then by the time I'm 20, there I am using a needle every day.
And like every user, Shane needed cash to feed his addiction.
I've sold to lawyers, I've sold to teachers, I've sold to nurses. It's crazy, mate,
Shane's surprisingly tight-lipped when you ask him who supplied the drug.
No comment, mate.
But make no mistake, the crime syndicates moving ice around the country are well organised and they're ruthless. Sometimes, though, cutting off the head of this monster is too late. The tentacles have already ruined young lives.
I had to go pay a drug debt of my own. I ended up getting tied up that night. They were going to just drill my kneecaps out or, pour a boiling kettle on top of me. Yeah, it's a pretty ugly business.
At a glance, you wouldn't even suspect. He's a fit, healthy-looking 22-year-old. But Sam Miller was dealing drugs to support his addiction by the time he was 15.
I was going through like an ounce every 2 days, which is 28 grams. Yeah, so got nothing to show for it.
Well, nothing to show for it but the emaciated frame of a drug addict. At the height of his addiction, the cost is hard to believe.
$5 grand. Yeah, $5 grand every day.
Charmaine Miller was only 18 when she gave birth to Sam. A single mum, she struggled when her son hit his teenage years.
We had trouble with him sort of when he was becoming around the teenage years. He'd become fairly rebellious. But probably around the time of 15, 16, it became a big problem.
I was out of home when I was 15, so couldn't get Centrelink. It was a way to make my money, really. I'd have to sell drugs just to, buy things that I need or support my own habit. So, yeah.
After a series of run-ins with the law, 2 stints in jail and 1 failed rehab attempt, Charmaine worries what the future holds for her son.
I don't want to take a phone call to say that he's in jail or whether, I've got to identify him.
On both sides of the Murray, the ice flows as easily as the river waters. In peaceful, charming, safe places like Echuca, people around here talk about the ice plague that fuels crime and fear and heartache. Well, here, they've had enough.
Coming up, the search for answers. And you live here. Could you hear people crying out for help?
You could see it.
With hopes for a fresh start.
I just want to have my family back.
Now, what really shocked me in reporting this story is the age that our kids are experimenting with drugs, sometimes even before they've left primary school.
Our generation is really stuffed up. Yeah.
This is Tabor House, a rehab facility on the outskirts of Ballarat. The stories here are staggeringly similar.
What was Mum saying? What was Dad saying when you were high on ice? What do your family say?
Don't come back.
Don't come back.
Yeah, don't come back home the way you are.
And how bad did it get?
It got to the point where me and Dad had a fight, and he lost his eye.
You can't help feeling for these kids. They're really likeable. They want to get better. And the man who's doing all he can to help them is the centre's director, Sean Duffy.
Sean, third time lucky. How common is that?
It is common. It is common. For some young lads, they come back more than once, more than twice.
Handprints and messages on the walls paint a picture of how successful rehab can be.
The prevailing theme for young people that come through places like this is about their own self-worth and self-esteem and how they feel about themselves.
But it's a long road for many. Getting off the drug is just the first step.
We're seeing the emergence of major mental illnesses. The prevailing impacts of this are profound.
Luke was just 13 when he started. He says the majority of kids at his school were using ice. A learning disability alienated him from his classmates. Ice gave him the escape that he wanted.
Do you remember the first time you tried ice?
Yeah, it was wonderful. In the end, it just ruins you.
But sitting amongst the springtime blossoms in the glistening sun, it's hard to believe that this kid has had such a dark past.
What's the worst thing you've done?
Hit me down in the head with a machete.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's pretty bad.
Got like 20-something stitches on his head. Yeah, worst thing I've ever done.
Luke's addiction has taken his family to hell and back. His grandparents, Phil and Linda, are sticking by him during his recovery. Like so many families, it's been a difficult decision to keep on giving him just one last chance.
Yeah, we've had fist fights, and to try and stupid.
It's very emotional.
To try and understand that I could actually sit there and want to belt my grandson. This kid felt like Superman, you know, and I actually said I was actually punching him as hard as I could, and he just didn't even feel it. You know, it's horrible for me to even say that.
I was at one stage in my head planning his funeral.
Really?
Yep, I knew he was going to die.
At its worst, how bad was it?
I was quite happy to go out and get my gun out of the shed and go and shoot myself.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that bad?
Yeah, yeah.
He's got dreams. He still has dreams. I think when you give up the dreams, I think that's it.
But what do you really think? Will he do it?
Yes, I do.
I'm still sceptical. Right, my expectation, the only thing I want out of this is one day I'm hoping that Luke will walk up to me, shake my hand, say thanks.
Now, everybody knows that prevention is better than rehab programs and policing. But so many people are still left asking. Ian Madison is the former mayor and lives just outside of Echuca.
So 4 years ago, Ray, we had there was a forum run over the river in a club. Some 400 people turned up, and then there was this void of information. And for information, a desperate need for information of what this drug was creating in the community and within families.
What are you doing on ice?
Ian and his fellow councillors set up the Community Against Drugs Action Group, which offers a support network to parents and to families.
And you live here. Could you hear people crying out for help?
You could see it. These forums that were being run, you know, they were all looking for answers.
Paul Jarman is a local publican. He's also served on the Shire Council. His family has owned bars and pubs along the Murray for decades.
But marijuana, speed, heroin, anything as bad as this?
I've never seen a drug have such a dramatic effect on our young people, or even people that you wouldn't expect it to touch, that find themselves addicted to methamphetamine or ice.
It's that fact that good kids from good, hard-working families are getting hooked. It means there's no time to sit back and do nothing. And Nick was one of them?
Nick was one of them. He's a good kid. And it saddens me that his family's had to go through that when he was a great, cheeky, smiled young man. But when a drug like this affects a family, that can be the consequences, and I think no one deserves that. Yeah.
You need to know not just the people that your children, are friends with. You need to know their families. You need to know their parents. Sam had a friend who, for his 13th birthday, was given a slab of cans and a packet of cigarettes. Well, I didn't know that till later on, and he was around at their house all the time.
For Charmaine Miller, just by asking for help, she may now be able to get back the son she thought she'd lost almost a decade ago. Coming up, walking free from a life of crime.
That solution has to start with them being ready.
And some tough questions for our leaders about where millions in federal funding is going.
Everyone seems to be a lot of talk and no action.
Right across Australia, queues to get into drug rehab centres are endless. You have to honestly ask yourself whether it's too late to fix the problem. But then you meet someone like Tina Gunter and see how successful rehab can be.
I've been clean for 13 years. I am happily married with 2 children and another one on the way. And I have the most amazing life because I made some really wise decisions to listen to some really smart people.
This was Tina the junkie. She was using every illicit drug she could get her hands on. Ice was the one which nearly killed her.
I had been awake for 10 days on ice and I tried to commit suicide by taking an overdose of medication. I ended up doing an armed robbery, was arrested by the police and then released on personal bail. They dropped me off at the train station, and I looked around at my life and I knew that I had a choice to make.
The Fresh Start Clinic in WA is the only one of its kind in the world. It was here that Tina kicked her ice habit, and it's here that she now helps other addicts also recover. Dr. George O'Neill has pioneered the use of naltrexone implants, a slow-release treatment that blocks the highs that drugs like heroin and ice deliver.
Ice addiction's become an unsolved problem around the world, and so we think that the combination of naltrexone implants and very good counselling and very good rehab together is getting patients better.
The procedure involves inserting naltrexone pellets into the abdomen. But Dr. O'Neill insists the naltrexone is only the first step down the recovery road. One person willing to take that step is Sam Miller.
Take a seat.
This is Sam.
How are you?
Sam, how
nice to meet you.
Sam's here from country Victoria.
Just as a drug like ice can tear families apart, when an addict comes clean, it can slowly bring them back together.
I just want to have my family back. I don't know who they are anymore. I've really let go of who I have been, and I just want to do it for myself and my mum. And, yeah, start over again.
After patients undergo the implant procedure, they head out to Fresh Start's rehab facility in Northam, a small country town 100 kilometres from Perth.
Each room is self-contained, it's nice and neat, and it's really safe for the guys.
Well, if the waiting lists for rehab are endless, why are there so many empty rooms? The answer is funding.
The federal government spent $300 million on a federal ICE task force. We haven't seen a cent of it. And we're helping dozens of men get off drugs every single day.
In December 2015, the federal government finally issued this National ICE Task Force report. At the same time, they trumpeted the fact that they'd committed $300 million to try and battle the problem. Now, in doing this story, we've gone from WA into country Victoria, over the mountains in New South Wales and the back blocks of Queensland. And we've talked to people on the front line, so police, hospital workers, rehab specialists, ICE users and their families. We contacted the Prime Minister and asked if he would meet some of these people face-to-face in Canberra so they could tell him about how their lives have been destroyed and their communities have been devastated. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister said that he didn't have the time.
Everyone seems to be a lot of talk and no action.
Tim Sturmey is a reformed addict. He was one of the lucky ones. He got a bed in rehab.
I don't know what would have happened had Fresh Start not have been in Northern. I honestly couldn't tell you what... I couldn't tell you. I don't want to know what would have happened, actually. I'm pretty happy with what did happen.
Tim now works at the Northern facility as the groundskeeper. He says that a key part of the battle is changing public perceptions of drug addicts.
No one says in year 2, oh, when I grow up, I want to be an addict. You know what? It's going to be the job for me. I'm going to be an addict. I'm going to deal drugs. That's what I'm going to do.
Why should the community and government agencies help drug addicts like I used to be? Why? Because they deserve it. Because it's cheaper to put someone through a rehabilitation program than just leave them on the streets. See
what's happening there? And one person who's broken that cycle is Shane Taylor. He's left jail a free man, but also a better man and now a father. But he couldn't have done it without help and without a different attitude.
A big part of that solution has to start with them being ready for treatment. Because if they're not, if they're denying that they have any issue with drugs, you're really going to make very, very few inroads.
Natalie Sangali runs the prison rehab program that gave Shane a second chance. Together with Wandoo Prison's director, Wendy Sinclair Gibbon, she's trying to break the cycle of ice addiction as it's passed from generation to generation.
Some of the guys that I speak to at Acacia have had their parents inject them for the first time when they're 10, 11, 12, and that's it. They're now on a track that it's very, very difficult to get them off when they start at that age.
Probably when I started, 50% of prisoners came in with an issue related to substance misuse. Now I would say it was 99%, if not 100%.
Counselling and support.
And I'm passionate in believing that if somebody under 18 comes into prison, then society has failed them, absolutely failed them. And we as a society need to expend every single bit of effort we've got so that kids don't continue on that track of self-destruction following neglect.
Coming up, a father's love and vision to protect our kids from drugs.
Your kids have this belief that you're their world.
Of all the stories I've heard on this journey across the country, you'll find some that really inspire hope. In the rolling vineyards of Orange, in the central west of New South Wales, Rob Nixon stands tall, despite unbelievable personal loss.
You know, I stand here as this pillar. They see me as this pillar of hope and strength.
Do you think ice equals killer?
Absolutely, Ray. Absolutely. My son, for example, my son was a beautiful kid, just like any kid. He was a beautiful boy. He was a hard worker. He was a family man. He had 3 beautiful children. He had a fiancée, a beautiful fiancée. And it took this killer, this drug ice, to come along and to destroy his whole foundation of his thinking of where he's at, of his future, of a vision. It took it away from him.
Josh Nixon fell into a dark battle with depression following the suicide death of his sister Aria. Josh thought that ice would get him out of the black hole. Instead, it sunk him deeper.
He just breaks down and he just starts crying his eyes out. And he said, and he starts to tell me about all these things he's been doing. Now, I've been taking ice 2 or 3 times a week, and it keeps him up for 2, 3, 4 days at a time, and that's why he can't go to work. And he's been hitting and beating up on his fiancée. He's been scaring his children. You look around the home, there's big holes in the wall. He's just out of control. He said, I can't deal with it anymore, Dad.
Rob took his son to the local hospital in Orange. Despite his suicidal state, they were told that Josh could not be admitted until he was assessed later in the week.
You know what I mean? They tell us that, no, we can't do an intake. And I'm sitting there. When I think back now, we were sitting there like stunned mullets. I was.
But you're there, you're crying out for help. They say, no, we can't do it.
Yeah. You know, when you've got kids, Ray, you've got kids, right? You pick them up, and when they're born, you hold them in your arms for the very first time, and you make this thing in your heart, this pact with them, that you're going to be there for them.
For the second time, Rob's world fell apart. And tragically, Josh Nixon took his life the day before he was due to enter hospital.
And I get a phone call from my wife. Josh is not here with us anymore.
Rob has no doubt that ice had driven his son to the point of no return.
My daughter's death was the motivation. Ice, that drug ice, was the thing that gave him the power to be able to go through it and end it.
After Josh Nixon's suicide, the New South Wales government decided to hold a clinical inquiry into the circumstances of his death. But for his grieving family, and especially Dad Rob, he decided that the answer had to be more than simply finding someone to blame.
I can either make this choice in this moment, in this present moment right now, that I can fall into the abyss, or that I can do something in honour of you. You know what I mean? And I say this to all parents that are suffering this. You don't have to fall into that hole.
This tough Maori Shearer wasn't prepared to be a victim once again of the ice scourge cutting his family to pieces. But filled with anger and sorrow, somehow Rob got back at his feet with the support of his wife Angela, their 4 children and the community in Orange.
The support actually came from strangers, like lots and lots of strangers.
Together, Rob and his supporters have formed a foundation to break the stranglehold of ice. They're making it a true community fight back.
I think there are obvious needs within the community, and I think people can make a difference right here. Kindness costs nothing.
We've sort of defaulted to a mentality of, well, the government should fix everything. I actually think that's not right.
We can't wait for the government to fix this.
And
they can't fix it. It's up to us.
Rob and his foundation want to build a network of first responders. He doesn't want anyone to feel like they're battling this problem alone.
In 6.5 years, I lose 2 children, and not one person rings me up, has the whatever it takes to get on the phone and asks me, am I doing okay? Do I need any help? And so my vision of a service, and what I would like to be involved with, is early intervention.
Yeah.
You know, they get a knock on the door from this organisation and say, we're here to help you.
Across regional Australia, we've seen the damage that ice is doing. And while the past is littered with death and despair and broken lives, the story must have a different ending. Rob Nixon is rewriting the script. In his quiet moments, Rob knows that Josh is right there by his side.
Ice is the ultimate love affair. You know what I mean? You can't see past it. You give your life for this thing.
As we've discovered tonight, ice is an ugly and destructive drug. But if we ignore it, the cries for help will only grow louder and more pitiful.
Try to talk to them. Don't scare them off. And be their friend, like even, you know, their father, but still be a friend.
What would you say to your sons about ice, for example? What would you say now, given your experience?
That it's a shitty drug, and that I hope that they don't try it.
I think if communities care enough about themselves, care enough about the people within a community, then you can't give up.
My dad said to me just before he died, he said, thank you for changing your life so that I can leave this world and know that your mum has your support and that your mum has you. Yeah.